Right, let's get started. So hello and welcome to the final webinar of part of the 2020 Waterway Restoration Conference programme, which is jointly run by the Inland Waterways Association and the Canal and River Trust. My name is Jenny Morris and I'm the Restoration Hub Coordinator for the Inland Waterways Association. So today's webinar is being run by Keir's Wayne Cahill, who will be talking about dealing with utilities on your site. He'll also be joined during the Q&A session by Des Harris, who is Canal and River Trust Infrastructure Services Manager, and Chris Lee, who is CRT's Regional Utility Surveyor. So I'll hand over to Wayne now.
Thank you, Jenny. Still a strange concept, talking to myself, and there's the only picture I can see. So welcome everybody to this. It's a fairly short presentation because what I don't want to do is talk to you about things that's not relevant to yourselves, but mainly just go over what we do as Keir, what is done as part of the businesses in UK, and again, just really going over it briefly. But the main part is, as Jenny said at the end, is if you've got questions, if there's questions we can answer, or as a business as Keir that does a lot of utilities, a lot of dig downs as we call them, please ask, because there's a good opportunity. So I've been given this, like I say, from yourselves. Basically, who am I to start with? So as it says there, I'm the SHE lead, so Safe and Healthy Lead for Keir Regional Civils. As part of that, we oversee Canal River Trust, so the major and minor works on just about everything that's owned by Canal River Trust. We also have similar work with environmental agencies, so where we are on canals, we move across to rivers, and we also have a lot of work with National Grid and Cadence, which is really dealing with utilities and very dangerous utilities. Also part of Keir, we work with the utility sector. So we work with a dozen waterways or water contractors, utility contractors. So I think last year, Keir did dig down, so excavations onto probably sewers, onto burst pipes, onto electrical pipes. Probably did about 250,000 last year. So there's a lot of experience, and probably hence why I'm sat in front of you in my back bedroom in the Wirral. So, right, so what we're going to talk about. So what we've been given is really a few bullet points to talk about. First one, pre-planning, identification or identifying utilities. Safe citizens working around the utilities, what to do if it goes wrong, cable strikes, etc. And then the last three, we're just going to talk about the cost of diverting utilities, how to approach utility companies to get a deal, better deals, what's right, what rights the trust have, and opportunities. So just move that box. So pre-planning. Right, so pre-planning, identifying utilities. It's as it says there, identifying clearly extent of the work area and find out what your underground services are within the area before considering whether they're likely to be disturbed. So this is not just about we have to dig a hole on a canal bed. This is not we have to dig a hole on the towpath. This is the extent of the work. So when we start about pre-planning, we look at things like access routes. So actually, are we going to cross utilities? For example, if we've got high or medium pressure gas mains, if we're crossing a major service, do we have to support that service? Do we have to put our bog mats? Is there a specific survey that needs to take part? Is a specific temporary works? So it's not just about looking at the work you're conducting, it's actually the full extent. How are we having to put fencing in to protect people? Are we going to put net-long fencing and use them nasty pins and knock them pins in? So it's little things like that. It's just not the main focus of digging that hole. It's actually anything and everything to do with that job, that we may be pressurizing services, utilities, we may be knocking pegs in, wooden pegs for your boards for the prior to towpaths, anything and everything to do with that job. And that's part of the pre-planning. Other one there, as it says, obtain service drawings from utility companies and other organisations with relevant information about the site. So if you're the landowner, you've probably got something to do with the assets and understand what's in there. The service drawings and obtaining them, and there's different locations, different areas. You can go to the companies direct, but as you'll see on the right-hand side there, that there's an easy, how I just can't see it. Just let me move this. There's an easy way of actually getting services, all one in there. And if I show you this link, I'll show the easiest place to get to it. So if you're suddenly having to get a, let's have a look if I can show it. No, I can't. Okay, apologies for that. Basically, let me close that down. On the side there, you've got a company called Line Search. So if you take details of Line Search, it has a website, and it actually shows you, there's a nice little video, as we've got everything now, a YouTube video, and it shows you how the easiest way to get services. Line Search is free to anybody, to whether you want to know what services in the back of your garden, or on a canal, or to a business. They are free, and it's a one-stop place to get all your service or service drawings indications from one place. It's all done online, all comes in emails, and you get color drawings to good scale and gives you good information. Better than the old system where we used to have them by post, they turn up black and white and to a bizarre scale. Okay, so that's the best and easiest place to do it. The other part there, it says survey the site to identify the services and other underground structures. Record the location of any services. So this is actually going to the site. So we might have a service drawings and it tells us we've got a gas main, we've got a bit of fibre, we've got a BT cable, whatever's in there. We actually once physically need to go to site. So we do a desktop survey. So there is in the regulations, it shows in a document called PAS 128, and that's just a matter of information. It tells you different types of surveys. So actually, the first survey usually takes place is the desktop survey. So you go to Google Maps, you have a look over ground, anything on the ground, any structures, you get your survey. So you put a pre-plan together, you then go to site and see if there's anything else that's there. Biggest issue we find conducting these is we get these lovely service drawings that have been updated. However, by the time we get to site, there's suddenly another house there. There's a set of garages. They've got a power to the garages. So actually what we've got in place is the 2D version. When we get to site, we see the 3D version. We see that suddenly we've got cables we're unaware of. So that's what it's talking about. It's also about actually, do you need a different type of survey? So where as we go survey the ground, we get our service coordinators, our qualified operators to use the Cat and Jennies, the radio detection equipment. If we're in an area like town centres or near national grid utilities companies, if we do need deeper service, there is different types. So it's not just about CAT scan, seeing if there's something detectable. It might actually need ground penetrative radar. There is different types of survey. It isn't just about swiping across with a Cat and Jenny. Review, assess the planned work to avoid disturbing services where possible. So we've got a good pre-planning. We put it all in place. We have service drawings we think we're going to do, but actually when we look at that, so where we've maybe said we're going to dig a hole and we're going to dig it there, we're going to put foundations in for a gate, whatever it is, it's about reassessing that actually we may not be able to do what we think. And the main reason for that is because we may have a main electrical cable running across where we want to dig. We may have a main gas main. We may have the telemetry cables from somewhere. We may have fibre from Sky. So actually, this is about reassessing, and can we actually do it in a different way? Can we do it in a different location? Do we need to dig that hole? Do we need them foundations in that location? So this is now about avoiding as part of your pre-planning, because avoiding is usually the cheaper version, because one is we don't want to get hurt by digging down and hitting surfaces, and two, we don't want cost, especially on our side and your side, Canal River Trust and volunteers. There's a lot more things we can do with that money than actually getting service companies out to reroute them. Okay, and that allows sufficient time and provides sufficient resources to do the work. We find it with a few clients, and I'm not saying CRT are one of them, that we plan the job on a Friday and they want us to come to site on the Monday. As you see on the previous parts, there's quite a bit of pre-planning to do. We can't expect people to turn up on the Monday with all this information. If they haven't got this information, we then put them in danger, because actually that's part of our planning. And the last part of this slide is the emergency works okay, emergency works still require plan and assessment of the risk. So if we do emergency works and we do it with Canal River Just Environmental Agency, we still need to assess the risk and plan it properly. Okay, and at certain stages, it doesn't override the emergency planning, it overrides the risk to people and the risk to life. Okay, so it's a fine line, but actually, as we all know with services, it can be a BT cable, but actually it can be 11 kV electrical cable. And just one point there when we talk about utilities. So when we plan to do a bit of gardening, we put them lovely lights in our garden and we have low voltage and we call it 12 volts, or it is 12 volts, and we put our lights in and there's very few volts going through it. When we talk about services and service drawings, when we look at it and it says low voltage, that low voltage can be anything up to 1,000 volts. Okay, so please take that in mind when people are reading service drawings. Low voltage can be anything up to 1,000 volts, and that really, really will harm you. Okay, I hope we can all see that, and it does move. Good. So, safe systems of working around utilities. I've got a nice couple of photos there for you. So the top one shows a different way of excavating with a vacuum X, and the bottom one shows somebody who's done quite well and drawn out or done the services from the service drawings actually on the ground. So safe systems around working the utilities, the 3 stages, and each, as it says there, complement each other. And an essential is we've pre-planned everything, but then it's about planning the work. So what do we mean by planning? Well, actually, the pre-planning is fine. It's all on paper. We've checked everything, but the planning is including anything else. So this is just not about yourselves. Well, actually, it might not just be you working on that site. It may be ourselves as Kia. It might be you working close to the highways. You might be working close to the council, authorities. This might be a project that involves quite a lot of people, not just yourself, not just volunteers, different. So you've got to plan the work to incorporate with everybody else. You've also got to plan the work on maybe the seasons as well. So we're coming into the season where I'm just looking at the grey skies in front of me, where it's going to rain most days. So actually, when we're starting doing dig downs and we're looking at services and avoiding services, the last thing we want to be doing is turning up in the morning and we've got a puddle that's 6 foot deep and at the bottom of this services. So again, we never ever dig blind, because actually digging blind means we're assuming that things are when. Same with detecting, identifying and marking. As we've said before, there's different bits of equipment we can use. Okay, there's the radio detection equipment, the cable avoidance tools. There's the ground penetrative radar, and it goes further than that to give you a picture. And again, this is dependent on the risk, depending on the services. But there's also the availability of the service providers. So again, when we look at HSG 47, which is the health and safety guidance for underground services, or the GS6, which is overhead services, this is actually speaking to the utilities provider. If you think you've got an issue or concern and you could do with their help, they will. It might take a challenge to get them out there, but they will, because it's their service. What they don't want is you to actually disturb their services. If it was Sky and you're cutting off 20,000 customers, it's no harm to people, but it will cost them, it will cost us, or it'll cost yourselves. Okay, so get them out, they will assist you. Okay, and that's part of their remit. Like I said, it sometimes is a challenge, but it does help, and it gives you an understanding of what you're doing. And again, sometimes they'll come and do a watch and brief while you're working. So what I mean by watch and brief is, as you're working and you're working close to services, they will actually come and watch how you're doing it and stop you if you're encroaching on their services or they see something that's not fit. So do that. Last one there, safe excavation, safe digging practices. So this is about exposing the service in a safe manner. So we have a process. So it's starting with the trial holes. It's alternate digging, as there you see the VAC-X at the top. So you've got different things. You've got the water jetting, hydrovacs, air lancing. So it's not just about a protected shovel and a guy or a lady. Actually, there's stuff out there which does cost, but actually it makes it a lot safer. And again, it's also about you digging that hole. Are you protecting the excavation? You're protecting the people in it. Is there any loadings? Is there any buildings close to it? So there is safe excavation, safe digging practices. Okay. So safe systems just doesn't mean RAMs. Okay. And for example, as Kia and all other big companies, anybody else that works on services, they follow guidance to Health and Safety Guidance 47, which is the underground protection underground services. But we have a standard, and the standard tells us everything from who's actually leading it, who's responsible, the competency of people, the processes, and everything and anything of how we will make sure that excavation or that dig down, that contact with utilities is safe. And the main photo there, you see, we have a Kia service strike reduction strategy. So Kia leading lead on the utilities, joint utilities group. And as part of this came out, and a lot of companies use it. It's just an 8-step process of actually, we got a point of aware assessment in place, the proximity, have we got loadings, have we got buildings, where are we putting the spoil, have we got the plans, are they up to date, are they in colour, are they at the right scale so you can understand them. The paint, are we going to paint it? We mark it, as we've seen on the previous slide about marking it, making sure the people who do come to site, because they probably haven't been involved in the pre-planning, they understand where the service joins are, where they are, and somebody's actually marked them on the ground. Okay, it gives them a big advantage by the time they get there. Permit to dig is probably the big one, because this involves documenting everything we do, from the planning, from the dig to the competency, to the tools, to the recording. Okay, and that's main part of actually locating. So you'll have a permit to locate and then a permit to excavate. So it's a 2-stage permit. Some have a 1-stage, but this is about recording at every stage. And on the permits, at some stage, it'll have a stop. So you go through the processes. If it's not right, you stop. You go through the process, you stop. And it's just making sure that everything in place is safe. Plant, and again, I've said it could be some person with an insulated shovel. It could be using excavators, mechanical tools. There is rules and regulations on how close you can get to utilities, depending what it is. It could be from 0.5 a meter using an excavator for low voltage electrical cables, right up to 3 meters on a gas main. Okay, so it's understanding the rules and regulations on that. So again, on the first slide, I think we showed that there was the bridge and we had a cable going over it. It's actually, once we've uncovered it, before we would carry on the work, is protecting it, whether we put it in the sleeve or we put a simple board over it, or actually where we put it into a bridge. We had a bridge on Elland Road, and Elland Road, that sounds Leeds United, on Elland Bridge in Huddersfield. There was that many services over the bridge. We actually made a temporary bridge and put all the services over. There was 12 main services that went from Huddersfield across the bridge across to Halifax. So again, simple things like that. And then the last one on there is pump. So as I spoke about, in this kind of weather, we want to be extracting that water out to a safe location. So actually we can see where we're digging, we can see the bottom, and vice versa is we actually want to make sure that we're not contaminating things. As I said, we've got a nice picture there of the killer. So one is we're extracting it to a safe source, but actually what we're doing is when we dig down is we're not actually got pollution. Again, on our utilities where we're talking about repairing sewers, there's another issue. We don't want to be extracting the water straight into another drain or straight into a river or canal. That's not good practice. Just let me check I haven't missed anything there. No. So dealing with utilities, what do we do if it goes wrong? So we plan never to have an accident. However, what we've also got a plan to do, whether it's working in the canal and we have life jackets and there's emergency plan if somebody goes overboard, okay, there's always a plan for something if it goes wrong. Now, the best ones for what we use and for what most companies use is if it's to do with electric or gas or whatever it is actually go online and find their emergency procedures, because if it's electrical, National Grid will have a procedure. If it's gas, the gas works, they will have a procedure. So when you're looking at an emergency plan, It might be basic if all the only service you've got is BT and you've got fibre. It might be simple, okay? But if we're talking about gas, we're talking about electric, have a look what they actually want, because as part of it, you may get them come out and they come out and I'll check the services and say everything's fine, but they'll also want to see your emergency plan. This is about protecting people, protecting assets, okay? The information's out there, like I say, depending on risk, depending on how deep it needs to be. Another part of it as well is similar if you're using plant in close proximity. Again, include the emergency procedure in plant. There's some really good videos out there. If you go on YouTube, how to react, how a plant operator should react if he makes contact with utility. So have a look online. It will give you the details, what goes wrong, okay, if cable strikes, etc. Check I haven't missed anything there. No. So the last part for me, before we do questions, is I just want to talk about what I've been asked. One is cost of diverting utilities and how to approach utility companies to get the best deal. Okay. Right. So cost of diverting, how to approach. What you've got to realise about cost of diverting utilities is you're approaching a utility company who it will cost to move their asset. It's their asset and it's their cost. What they will do is convert that into your cost. Okay, so the easiest way to say how to do it from experience is very politely. Okay, as we've gone through the planning previous, if we can avoid actually being in the vicinity of a service, if we can change our plan from pre-planning and that's actually we can move the location we're working, okay, that's the best way. But actually cost diverting is totally different in different companies. Depends where you are on the relationship with them. So for instance, Canal River Trust, they've got a good relationship with B-Sky-B, because B-Sky-B pay them a lot of money to have their, part of the other question, have their cables within the towpaths. However, when you then approach them to move their cables, just be aware that they are paying Canal River Trust to have the cables in there. So it's a gentle approach. There's no straight answer, and it differs from different areas. So it might be Western Power down south. It might be a different power company up north. It really does, but it is literally a soft approach. The best thing as Canal River Trust, as volunteers, as part of this, is actually as a charity, you can go hand in cap and say, as a charity, are you able to assist us? So I would say that is the best approach for cost of diverting utilities. So what rights do trusts have? Some, okay. So what I mean by some is service providers, so electric, gas and water, these are classed as necessary services, and the companies have statutory powers for laying, maintaining the services, and anywhere that needs carrying out on land assets you can't stop them, but actually it's only applicable to costs. So if they come onto your land and they need to do something, they won't pay compensation, but they will pay costs to losses sustained. So if there is a loss there, they will pay that because they have statutory rights. They can come and lay, maintain, etc. On the what are classed as non-essential services, such as BT, B-Sky-B, fibre, etc., they have codes. So there's a telecoms code. They have to adhere to this. So if you're dealing with telecoms, have a look on the net, have a look what the telecoms code is, and then you can actually relate to what they've got to adhere to. But again, this is talking to the actual specific company of how you can deal with it, how you deal with them. Okay, and again, Capping Hats, the Canal River Trust, we're a charity, but it is individual basis. But remember, there is statutory rights for what the class as essential services, such as gas, water, and electric. Okay, opportunities. Very good. CRT have been very clever with the assets they've got, and rightly so, because towpaths, We've got major towpaths around Leeds, around Birmingham, around Manchester, around Chester Ring, where utility companies have come to them, and over the years, whether it be electric, whether it be B Sky B or major, I think it's in Birmingham, we've had medium pressure there, is actually Canal River Trust get paid for our utilities in their towpaths. Opportunities that are hard to find at present, because if you think about the utilities companies, they've got everything they need in place. It's only if they've got new builds or the replacement is then you may be to a benefit to them. However, they're probably not aware of it. The way they do it is if they've got a new house in the state, or they've got to reroute from a different plant. And again, this might be a good opportunity at the time, because at the moment with HS2 going on from Birmingham to London, is they're having to move a lot of their assets. So there's nothing wrong with going to the asset companies, the utility providers, and saying, are you aware we have ownership of this? What I would say is they've got to get the services to where you are, and if they want to use your towpaths, etc., just be aware of it. It is far and few between, but actually, if anybody's got assets around the HS, have a look where the HS2 route is, because there's a lot of rerouting. If you've got a good length of towpath or assets there, they may well be able to use it, so there may be an opportunity there. Okay, and hopefully there's some questions come in. As you see that photo there, that's one of the Thames Water jobs. There was a dig down just to show sometimes it gets quite scary on the amount of services we have. Okay, so I will stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Wayne, for that really interesting session on dealing with utilities. We've got a little bit of time, so if you do have any specific questions about issues you're having on site with utilities, please put them in the Q&A, and Wayne, Des and Chris will be able to answer them for you. So if we jump into the questions straight away, if I can just invite Chris and Des to unmute and put their cameras on, that'd be great. Okay, so the first question we've got is from George here. From experience, there are quite a few utility companies like Severn Trent that don't use the line search before you dig. How do you go about getting records for others, and what's the most efficient way to get complete results? If I ask Des, first of all, on that one.
I think I would put this one to Wayne, because I think this is one that Cares do quite a lot.
Okay, go for it, Wayne.
That's a good swift move there, Des. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Having worked with Severn Trent, they're very strange that they seem to keep their assets close to the chests, and some of the utility companies are better at updating their information than not. What I would do is, if you don't get any joy from a utilities provider, go to them direct and ask them to come out, because they've got an asset. Because the biggest problem we have with service drawings is on the little corner, it states these are only for reference, so we can't rely on them. But sometimes you have to go, not especially with Severn Trent. There is Yorkshire Water are fairly good, Anglian Water fairly good. Severn Trent and those up in United Utilities, go direct to them and say, we believe we've got a significant water main or water cost, whatever it is. Big it up to them, ask them directly, and then if you don't get an answer from that, then you can actually complain to the regulator. Okay, because it is an issue, especially with Severn Trent. We had a 1.2 meter main in Birmingham when we were doing the job for the year. They didn't tell us it was there, and we started digging down for a tunnelling job, and this water provided a third of Birmingham. Okay, so it was quite scary. So do go to them. They do come out, but you've got to be polite and ask them, because it is their asset. Does that answer the question? Hopefully.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, good. Thanks, Wayne. This is kind of a similar question. So how do you guys cover the cost of utility searches, such as Southern Water, who are not again online search, but charge about £50 per search?
Again, depend on the area. It has to be taken as part of the job. So we know that actually before you dig line search, what we can and we can't. The water companies are probably the worst, as it's coming up with Severn Trent and everybody else, is then it's just a matter of having to be incorporated. What we have in Kia, and it's probably not so much with yourselves, is you can pay an annual fee for these searches from different companies. So if you are in regular contact with them, have a look at that option.
Okay, thanks. We've got a question here from Roy. Could you just expand on what the regulations defining how close to dig are? So where do they fall under all the health and safety regulations?
Sorry, how close to dig from a service?
Yeah, where can we find the details about how close to dig?
Oh, if you have a look on, so health and safety guidance 47 is the guidance for underground services. On there, you'll find links. I'm trying to think. I don't think it, I can't remember if it says it specifically, but if you put in distances underground services, it does state, and a really good question, because actually, as I probably said, if it's a medium pressure gas main, it's 3 meters. If it's a normal electrical cable, it's 0.5 of a mechanical. Good question. I can't remember if it specifically says it in the HSG 47, but if you look at health and safety executive, it'll be around there. However, what I will do is dig it out and I will send it to you, Jenny, and then if you can share that, we'll go from there.
Of course, yeah, we'll circulate to everyone after the webinar. Thank you very much, Wayne.
What I can add to that, Jenny, on the Sky services, our contract with Sky Network is we can identify the location of all the services in our mapping system. In that contract, it specifically states that there is a process that we have to go through to liaise with Sky if there are any works planned close to their services. I don't believe they will allow any mechanical plant to dig within 1 meter of their service as a minimum.
Okay, yeah. Just one other question that has popped up is we've talked about the opportunities of having fibre broadband through Toolpaths and putting utilities through Toolpaths. Are there any kind of challenges or negatives of having them there for if restoration group is looking at that opportunity? Just something they need to be aware of.
I can answer that, having as Kia dug many a towpath, is there is, because if you've got a towpath with no services in, it's absolutely brilliant, because you get the plans and nothing's there. So actually there's no danger to life, to hazard, to environment. As soon as you're taking money for that service, and as Des said there, Sky then put implementation that you can't dig within 1 meter. Now, seeing as most towpaths are only 2 meters wide, we've done jobs where we're having to hand dig miles and miles of towpath. So 1, it's good for money. 2, it's not good, because then you're paying us to hand dig big stretches of towpath. So 6 of 1 and half a dozen right down the middle.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Jenny, if I may. Just to make the distinction with in telecommunications under the new code, shall we call it, although it's 3 years old, so the operators have increased rights to use our land, our waterways, to lay their fibre cable or whatever. So we may not always be able to sort of have the flexibility that we would otherwise require. So it's a balancing act sometimes, especially with telecommunications.
Yeah. Do you think it's has more positives? Do the positives outweigh the negatives then of doing it?
It does. To what Canal and River Trust get, it does, because they get a lot of money, which outweighs the amount of work we do on that. I think that, and Chris is right, but the biggest issue is probably with the telecoms ones is they tend to throw it into a hedgerow at certain stages, and that's the biggest concern. But actually, it's the ones where, such as B-Sky B, it's a lot of money, and actually, for what we do as a contractor, the difference in price probably outweighs outweighs in favour of having the services there than it does actually cost to us searching trial holes and digging around them.
And also, you know, there are disadvantages, small ones for the trust if we want to maintain our towpath, for instance, and it can be an issue if the service is too close to surface. However, the benefit is that Sky will provide a free service to liaise with us to identify the position and work with us to sort out any issues.
Yeah.
Very much right. We'll move on to the next question. This one's from George. So when a utility company diverts an existing service not relating to the canal, do they have to consult? So they've got a situation at the moment where WPD have installed a new cable only 450 mil below the surface, straight across the line of the canal to be restored. This is despite the line of the canal being protected in the district local plans. Don't know who wants to answer that.
That's okay. They should notify the landowner, the asset owner, that they've gone through it. So if this is new, so if it wasn't existing through their area, if it wasn't existing through their land or their asset, they should have notified. Now, whether that notification's gone higher and is sat on the desk is a different matter. So it's worth checking through the chain of command of where it is in the system, because it may be they only have to notify, and that's the difference, because it's classed as a necessary service.
Is a notification they would just send a letter and details to the landowner? That's as far as they'd have to go?
It is. They don't need a reply. I think, don't quote me on this, it's something like 14 to 28 day reply. If the reply is not received, then they can proceed because they have got statutory rights. That's the issue with this. So you may find it's in the system somewhere, it's never been replied. Unfortunately, us on the ground, the operational staff suddenly find this cable going through their canal, which is not good.
Thanks for that. So we've got a bit more of a technical question. So would a CAT scan identify a 4-inch sewer that has no water flowing through it at the time of the scan? They've got a sewer that serves 1 or 2 houses.
I think, Wayne, that's probably your specialist area because you're on the ground a lot, aren't you?
Sorry, I missed that. I was reading. I think George just replied a chat to that previous question.
Yeah, he's just saying that they're not actually the landowner.
Yeah, and that's the issue. If you're not actually the landowner, you don't have a right to complain, unfortunately, because unless there is a protected, because the amount of assets Canal River Trust have got, if it's an ancient monument or protected scheduled monument, then you have rights. But if you're not the landowner, then that really makes it difficult. Really makes it difficult. Sorry, do you want to repeat that question, Jenny? I was oblivious.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problems. So this one's, would a CAT scan identify a 4-inch sewer that has no water flowing through it at the time of the scan? I think the sewer only serves 1 or 2 houses. No.
So the problem with CAT scanners, so cable avoidance tools, radio detection tools, is it picks up metal and it picks up traces of metal. So you can use a CAT scan. Same with the Jenny. So you got a CAT and a Jenny. The Jenny is usually used on things like street lights, where you can actually put a flow of voltage through it and then it'll pick up that flow. Anything that's plastic, like your water mains, like the domestic gas, or anything that's clay, like the sewers, it won't pick up. The only thing that'll pick up sewers is if you do a ground penetrative radar. Yeah. But what we usually do on the ground is you do a visual check. So again, you do the look up where you see the cables, you do the look down. So you're looking for manholes, and what you can usually do is trace from manhole to manhole what sewers you've got in there. And again, we do the manhole searches. So where we have the rods and the cameras go down, and 1 is they can see if it's still active, and 2 is they actually see. So we've got most companies that use the cameras, because the camera's got metal, as you poke it down, then maybe 50 meters, you can then detect the camera and you can then detect the location of the sewer. But very difficult. CAT and Jenny or RDs won't pick it up because it's not metal.
Okay, thanks for that. Another question here from Nick. What is your view on the comparative risks of hand digging versus mini digger when there are services near? Probably another one for Wayne.
That's a good question. Comparative risk. If it's planned correctly, and again, if we're looking at an electrical cable, so a low voltage electrical cable, we can use a mechanical excavator within 0.5 of a meter. If it's planned correctly and we know where the cable line is, it's good. It's quicker and it's safe. Where we have issues is where we haven't done decent trial holes, we haven't located its length, and we get to the end, and when they laid the cable, it didn't go in a straight line, it veers off to the left. So where you're hand digging, you can actually dig it and you can follow the line of it. If you haven't done it properly with an excavator, suddenly that 0.5 a meter veers off and you're within that parameter. So it really is about the pre-planning, the pre-location of the surfaces to doing the digging or the hand digging, mechanical or hand.
If you do have a strike or you cause damage to utility, are you responsible for the cost of repair?
Yes and no. So again, it is capping on to the utility provider. So we work with a lot of providers. If we have a strike, if it's BT, it's usually because it's in a hedgerow and we haven't seen it, and they'll come out and repair it. If it's B Sky B and it's notified and it's in a towpath, then we will get to it. Usually there's a certain allowance, they don't charge the whole lot. It depends where the fault lies. Now, if they see that we've gone with mechanical excavator and made a right mess of their cable, and I think on the presentation you've seen the piling rig and somebody wrapped a cable around it, you'll get charged all of it. If it's just a nick and you've had the right process and procedures in place, they won't charge. So again, it's a matter of, there's no straight, it's your cost or it's not. It's a matter of negotiation and actually how negligent you've been.
The trust in the contract, and Chris can clarify this, there are serious penalties to the trust if there is a strike on the Sky cable. I think when I last read it, it was something like £100,000 a day potentially. It was something ridiculous, wasn't it? So we have to be very, very careful when working around Sky services.
Yeah, I think as a contractor, Des, I think it's 3 strikes in a year, isn't it? And after them 3 strikes, it's severe cost to the client and
I suppose the only thing to say is I think I'm fairly sure, I don't directly manage the Sky contract, but as far as I'm aware, in when I have dealt with it, we have a pretty good working relationship with Sky in terms of any works that might impact on their cables. So that's one area where we have a good working relationship. So hopefully we would never have any problems with Sky cables.
I think the biggest thing to remember with Sky is where we're not harming people. Sky suddenly have 20,000 customers. Without Sky, it is detrimental to their business and it is embarrassing. So it's the face. Companies go on construction inquiry quite regular where they've suddenly wiped out. I think the last one was 100,000 Sky customers without Sky for 24 hours. It came down to the contractor, and it wasn't us, and it wasn't Canal River Trust. It's the face to the company that's harmed. It's quite damaging.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thanks for that. So next question: if you have a housing development next to an unrestored canal, what should you be alert on in respect to utilities? Sorry,
can you repeat that, Jenny? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So if you have a housing development going on next to an unrestored canal, is there anything you should be aware of or look out for in respect of utilities?
As a house builder and working on the Canal River Trust, the biggest concern is finding out where their services are going, because there is a bit of a lag between the housing development putting the services in, connecting to where the service connection is, and putting it on the service drawings. So there may well be 12 to 24 month lag between that being on the actual drawings. There is all sorts of issues, housing developments and canals. And again, we've done plenty of piling, and as part of the piling, we do a lot of concreting and we put a lot of ducting in. So mainly the services are protecting if they're encroaching on, for example, Canal River Trust. So it shouldn't encroach. Again, it might have a letter going to the top of Canal River Trust saying we are encroaching, but on site as operational, it should be protected. So it even been a ducting, but there is that lag between a service drawing getting it and you getting the information.
Okay.
And another point to make on that, a lot of our utilities departments, income generation, a good chunk of it is from surface water discharges to our waterways. So there can be an opportunity to deal with a house builder to look at possibly taking their water and generating an income. That's a big chunk of our work at the moment, which is a win-win for house builder and the canal owner.
Yeah, it's a really good point there, Chris. Thanks. So yeah, we've got a few more questions left. So this one's on a specific site. So this is one from John. We're starting to look at restoring a disused lock. It has a Severn Trent water main running through it. Do you guys have any suggestions how they might initiate discussions with Severn Trent?
I think, as previously said, is go direct to Severn Trent and give them a reason what you're doing. So again, when we talked about pre-planning and planning, is do you need to disturb or do you need to work where their asset is? Give them a reason why they need to look at protecting it or rerouting it, because they do listen. That's a wrong word. They do listen, but if you give them it's like everything else, you give somebody a good reason why you've come to them because of this, and you've looked at every option, and this is the last remaining option, they're more likely to take action or assist you with it. So it really is, give them a good reason, give them the information. A nice 2 or 3 slides on a PowerPoint, what you've looked at, these are details, this is what we've done, we've trialed, we have no other way around it, can you assist us? And that's the easy way, put it in the ball in their court.
Yeah, do you have any sort of experience of getting Severn Trent and water companies to move their pipes without charging money or anything like that? Have you had any successes there? Because I know, just looking at another question, is Derby and Sandy for a similar sort of position?
Go on, Chris, sorry.
I think on one level, if there's an agreement with the landowner, with Severn Trent, that agreement will obviously prevail in what rights each party have got. I suppose it's more difficult where there isn't an agreement. Severn Trent have certain powers, but as Wayne says, then you would have to rely on the utility being to a greater or lesser degree a benefactor to what we're doing or what you're proposing to do. Yeah.
And another one on that as well is when a lot of water pipes have been there for many, many years, right back to the Victorians, even with the sewers, is actually ask them what their maintenance plan is or their upgrade plan, because it might be the fact that you want to do a job and it might not be urgent, it might be the next 5-10 years. If you link in with their upgrade plan, it may link in with your plan. So actually, as part of their upgrade, they may be able to reroute it, they may be able to move it. So again, take into account what their business is, what they're doing. So just think outside the box, rather than think about what you want, think about how you can assist them. Because if you say, as part of your maintenance plan in 5 years' time, we are looking at doing this, can we help you? And they'll suddenly go, oh, I like that. Yeah, that's a good idea. Give them the idea, because if it's their idea, they're more likely to agree with it rather than your idea, you wanting something.
Mm. If they're a services company, utility company, wanting to put a service across an unrestored canal, and say you're not actually a landowner, are you able to have any sort of influence on the depth of the service, so that whilst they might put the service through the restored canal, it's actually not going to affect the restoration long term?
Only by talking to them. There isn't, they have got a statutory right, and there is recommended depths for electrical cables. And again, we've had where they put sewers and pipes through or below rivers or above rivers, as sometimes you see the big massive pipes above rivers, but they don't tend to do now. But again, it's communication with them. There is no rights, but there is an agreement. And again, if you're the landowner, the asset owner, it's easier to talk to them. If it's a canal and you're not the asset owner, it's speaking to the asset owner. And again, bring them little things in about not their statutory rights, but actually it's an asset. It's where volunteers work on it. It's where the public use. It's part of well-being. We've got specific structures. It's bringing them to the table, to not for them to back down, to actually go, okay, I understand your issue. We can do that, but it's difficult. There is no set ruling.
Do you find utility companies have like big corporate social responsibility or not? Because I know one problem that restoration societies find is when they approach them, they are just treated like another commercial company, and so the charges to move any utilities is just ridiculous for a small charity to kind of fund.
Yeah.
Do they have a soft side that we can get through to?
They do have a soft side, but the first is always the same, because it's a money-making machine. And if you're coming to them at a cost, they won't like it. Now, and again, I'm trying to think of environmentally and CRT is, if you have a water company, so if you're on Severn Trent's area, there's nothing wrong with asking Severn Trent to sponsor you. Get Severn Trent to understand the waterways. So if there is waterways up in Derbyshire, I'm trying to think, Yorkshire Water have got a lot, actually be proactive, actually see if they'll sponsor you. So next time you do ask them to move something, you're part of their well-being, you're part of their company, part of their structure, rather than just suddenly going, I want you to move a thing, and the first person will go, that's £12,000. If they know who you are, if you're integrated with them, it helps a lot. We see it with a lot of charities. I know Canal River Trusted Charity, where Kia are linked to these groups. So when this group suddenly raises its head and say, can you help us with this? We go, actually, yes, we can. So actually there's little things we can do as volunteer groups, as charities, get integrated with the water company that you may need to speak to in 3 or 4 years' time.
Excellent. Well, I think we've actually managed to answer all the questions that have come through on the Q&A. So I think it's about time to wrap up today's webinar, and just say a massive thank you to Wayne, Chris and Des for running the webinar and answering all your questions. If there's a question that comes up afterwards and we haven't answered it, please just drop me an email and we'll pass them on to Wayne, Chris and Des and see if they can help you out. So just to finish up, we'd love to get some feedback from everyone. So once the room closes, a pop-up box will appear and it'll take you straight to the survey form. So if you can fill that after the webinar, that'd be much appreciated. So yeah, and thank you to everyone who's joined us today and all the questions and experiences that you've put through the chat and the Q&A. And also thanks to Katie and Alex working behind the scenes just to make sure this webinar is run really smoothly. So this was the last Thursday lunchtime webinar of 2020, but we're in the process of planning more webinars for 2021. And all presentations, recording and unanswered questions will be circulated to everyone who's attended over the past 7 weeks of webinars and the main conference. So we hope you've really enjoyed the conference and the series of webinars. And hopefully we'll be able to catch up in person in 2021 when the vaccine is rolled out. So yeah, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.